morning, my friends. Your old pal Jordan the Lion. Well, today we have to start this day out at the park. We just have to. It's gonna get hot. This guy is already chomping at the bit. He's been kind of harassing me all day. Since I've been up, I've just been trying to edit something and drink some coffee, and he's just been all over me. So that means it's time to go play. So let's take him to the park, and then we're gonna do a pretty meaningful vlog today. Someone I have been a fan of my whole life, and I think you probably have been too. So let's go to the park. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. See what I mean? Patiently waiting to go. All right, let's rock and roll. You ready to go to the park? Oh yeah, classic Hollywood. Check this out. Here's a note letting us know that if we don't like the noise to just deal with it, and if you see someone peeing in public, just look away. Not everybody has access to a bathroom. So if you see somebody peeing in public in your neighborhood, just shut up and deal with it, basically. There you go. Welcome to Hollywood. Well, maybe we won't get a ton of sun today. It's kind of gloomy right now. Well, it's a pretty hopping day out here at the park, so we'll see if he decides to play with anybody. So today our vlog will center around someone who is the son of a famous singing cowboy. He was the head of the student body when he went to Hollywood High School, and he won over everyone's heart as Jack Tripper on Three's Company. Today our vlog is about John Ritter. Aren't you gonna play with anybody? There we go. There we go. Well, that was a gigantic waste of time. You did not play at all. You didn't even leave the table, but maybe for 2 minutes out of the 30 we were there. So I guess it's time for me to go vlogging, buddy. Right now we're heading off to Toluca Lake for our first stop on the John Ritter Remembrance Tour. We're gonna be passing Universal up here, just past the theme park, and this is the studio. Well, right here, right down the street from the Great Bob Hope, was the childhood home. Now it's rather long string of apartment buildings, but right here at 4402 was the childhood home of John Ritter. John Ritter's mother was somewhat of a well-known actress named Dorothy Faye. His father was singing cowboy great Tex Ritter, and John was the second child of those two. His older brother you never really heard much about as far as the entertainment business, because his older brother was born with cerebral palsy, and John would actually spend his younger years defending his brother, sticking up for his brother, and then in his later years raising money for the cause. But it was in this house that John grew up. Well, where this house would have been on this property right here is where the great comedic John Ritter, who everyone seemed to love throughout his entire life, was living out his childhood. And the first time that we ever saw him on TV was at the age of 11 years old, when he was on his dad's Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning television show. In fact, I found a little clip of it, and it was kind of funny because his dad says, "Who's your favorite singer?" And he says, it's you. And he says, "Who's your favorite TV star?" He says, "Oh, it's you." And he says, "Who's your favorite man?" And John says, "Tarzan, because nobody's written a book about you." And I think probably right there we knew that he was going to be this wonderful little personality-filled kid that would grow up to, I think actually the next time that we actually saw him, or it was the next thing I could find, or the youngest thing, was when he was 18. He was on an episode of The Dating Game, which is actually kind of funny because what he decided to do on The Dating Game was he didn't seem to really care whether he won the date or not, but he just kept making like jokes at all the other contestants' expenses. He was making sound effects and just had really quirky, weird answers to every question that was asked. And in the end, the girl did pick him, which kind of probably goes to show, you know, that personality was there long before we ever knew who Jack Tripper was. Now, obviously, the house is gone, and the family moved to Tennessee. John had started acting, you know, in his early teen years once he had moved out of the house, but his dad decided he wanted to run for senator and moved to Tennessee and ran for, I believe it was Congress there, but he never won. And which is kind of funny because when John was living here, he would say in interviews later that as a child he'd didn't necessarily want to be an actor. He actually originally wanted to be a baseball player or a politician, and then he said, then I decided I just wanted to be a liar. And I realized that being an actor, you were basically just lying all the time. You were pretending to be someone else, so I decided that's what I wanted to do. So I think where I want to take us for our next stop is over to Hollywood High School, where John went to high school and where he honed his craft at a very early age as an actor. Well, here we are. Just south of Hollywood Boulevard on Highland is Hollywood High School. Nowhere near Toluca Lake. I mean, not too far, but definitely not what you would think would be the same school district, but back then it seems like the students pretty much got to choose where they went to school. And so John went here to Hollywood High, and you can see they've honored his accomplishments here by painting a giant mural to the man right on the side of the building. So not only a great student and a successful actor, but this is where he got to participate in high school drama projects and really explore his personality. Good on Hollywood High School for remembering him. So John said that when he went to Hollywood High School, his brother had went to a kind of like a disabled school most of his childhood, and then went to a school at Hollywood High for disabled people. And so John decided to go there as well, because he said when his brother brought home the annual, which was basically like a yearbook, he saw that the student body president had a gigantic picture inside there, and he goes, looks pretty good. I think I'd like to have my picture there. So that was kind of what enticed him to become the student body president. And then he said when he went to USC, he basically had to start all over again and win everybody over with that personality all over again. Well, we've made it, my friends. Here we are. Forest Lawn, Hollywood, the final resting place of John Ritter. Let me go show you where he's buried. Well, now we've made it over to the section of the cemetery where John's buried. I'll show you how to find him if you ever want to come here yourself. First, you go around this Washington Memorial, and a lot of comedy greats are buried out here. Right off the top of my head, I can think of Stan Laurel and Buster Keaton. Next, you want to follow these stairs up, and you see right there, like I said, there's Stan Laurel on our way. Can't come here and not visit Stan Laurel if he's on the way. The great Stanley. Now, standing here at Stan Laurel's grave, if you want to find John Ritter, you want to take that doorway right there and go to the left. And then as soon as you walk in here, you make a left, and then a left, and right here is the final resting place of the great one, Jack Tripper. John Ritter says, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make, the Beatles. Now, John Ritter's career, after he finished up over at Hollywood High, he started auditioning and got a lot of bit parts. He was in, played like a con man in Hawaii Five-0. He got cast quite often as like a preacher. He was on, I believe, Rhoda, the Mary Tyler Moore Show. He was on the Waltons. He made cameos even in, what was the one that blew me away? MASH. He was in MASH. So he was getting cast in a lot of stuff, which obviously meant people liked him. He was very good on camera. And Three's Company came around. It was the 70s. They were looking for a new fresh face, and John Ritter beat out people like Billy Crystal for that part. Now, this was actually a TV show that was being made into an American version. They had I believe an English version called Man About the House, which was the same concept. It was a guy, this swinging bachelor who lives with two women, and they took it to the air, and it was a great success. I think, you know, a lot of it was John. You know, they say he had such an infectious personality on the set that it brought out the best in all the actors. That's, you know, all the people that worked with him have said that. The show probably wouldn't have been anywhere near what it was without him, and it actually lasted for 8 seasons. Now, it had quite a few cast changes, as we know. If you watch the show, the Ropers eventually left, and we met Mr. Furley, who was the great Don Knotts, and Chrissy would leave, and we would have 2 more people that would come in and fill her place. And the reason that she ended up leaving was because the show went into syndication, and she asked for a raise. As I understand it, she asked for like 10% of or like a 10% bonus for the shows that were being aired, and the producers just decided there was no way that they were going to let that happen, and that her ego was getting too big, so they threw her off the show. And they said that this created quite a rift between John Ritter and Suzanne Somers, to where they didn't talk for over 2 decades. Which is pretty sad, because Suzanne Somers said that they were extremely close on the set, that she loved John Ritter, and it was just unfortunate that that's the way it ended. The show went on for 8 seasons, and then John Ritter, you know, went on to become, I don't know if you'd say necessarily a movie star, but he certainly was in a ton of movies that I loved. I mean, just to name a few, obviously Problem Child was a great one, Sling Blade, Real Men. I mean, he was so likable on camera that it was just unbelievable. And he ended up marrying eventually. His second wife was the woman who played his wife in Problem Child, Amy Yazbek. They just hit it off when they filmed that movie, and John and her had a happy life for the rest of his life. It's pretty sad the way that his life was cut short. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. He was, you know, I think what's great about John Ritter is that he proved throughout his career that he wasn't just the likable, clean-cut guy. You know, I always loved John Ritter, to be honest with you, because when my dad was clean-shaven, he looked just like John Ritter. I mean, I always, like, when I would see John Ritter on screen, my dad even dressed like him, you know, had those same type of clothes and everything, so it was just one of those things, like, I always, when I would see John Ritter on screen, I would always kind of feel like I was watching my dad. And my dad and I were huge fans of Real Men with James Belushi. It was John Ritter and Jim Belushi together, and it's just an absolutely awesome movie if you've never seen it. Jim Belushi plays like, basically like an undercover U.S. agent, and his partner is an exact dead ringer for John Ritter and gets killed. But his partner is supposed to be the man who serves a glass of water to some aliens, and so they have to go find a look-alike, and they find John Ritter. They find this guy who's just a measly house husband that has no confidence, can't stand up for himself. And so over the time, this week that they're supposed to go to meet the alien that actually looks like a human, it's Jim Belushi's job to turn John Ritter into a man. And I would love to do the filming locations of that movie if I could find them. I know that the house was in Santa Clarita, but I can't find where that house was, where, you know, he would have all those altercations with the local gang and everything. But great movie. But then he blows your mind when he does Sling Blade, because he plays, you know, like this kind of quirky gay character who gets made fun of through the whole movie. And you know, I found this little interview with Billy Bob Thornton, and he's saying, like, he goes, that was a hard movie to shoot, because he said, I had met John, we had become fast friends. John had a TV show, I think it was called Hearts of Fire, and Billy Bob Thornton made a cameo on it. And eventually Billy Bob started making Sling Blade, asked John Ritter to do the movie, but he said every time we would start filming a scene and John would look at me, look at the way I looked and the way I was dressed and my character, he would start laughing. We couldn't get a solid take out of him, which is kind of surprising for somebody who's, you know, such a seasoned veteran like John Ritter. And the movie itself is phenomenal, obviously. I think probably most people have seen it, but John Ritter's part in that was amazing. And, you know, you'd think there, it's like, wow, this guy can do no wrong. He's conquered TV, he's conquered movies, he's pretty much conquered everything he's wanted to do in life, and yet he still accepted another television show. They offered him a show called 8 Simple Rules that had, you know, as we know, Katie Sagal, who played Peg Bundy, and she's been in tons of stuff since then. I mean, Sons of Anarchy and all these great shows. And she even said, the only reason I took this show was John Ritter. I wanted to work with John Ritter. And Kaylee Cuoco from Big Bang Theory was on that show playing his daughter. And unfortunately, one day he showed up to work and throughout the day he started feeling sick. They thought it was food poisoning, and because basically they said it had the same symptoms as food poisoning. However, it just progressively got worse, and I believe they took him right across the street to one of the hospitals in the area and got him checked out. And yeah, unfortunately they found out that he had some problems with the connecting parts of his heart, and he ended up dying that night, which was kind of sad because he was a longtime friend with Fonzie, Henry Winkler, and Henry Winkler was supposed to be the guest on that week's show. So pretty unfortunate. It was also really unfortunate that the day that he passed away happened to be his youngest daughter Stella's 5th birthday. The only daughter that he had had with Amy Esbeck. Ah, man. Life just, you know, there's some people that when they pass, it just, the whole world feels it. Robin Williams, you know, Don Knotts, even Anthony Bourdain, but John Ritter was right up there in that class. You just can't find anybody that didn't like the guy. And in Hollywood, that's saying something. So rest in peace, John Ritter. You've earned it. And as a little treat to some of you, this coming week I'm planning on going to the real location, or the place that the Regal Beagle was based off of. So we'll get to see where Jack Tripper used to put in all those smooth lines trying to woo women. And we'll get to see exactly where that was and where that was based off of. John was rewarded for his great acting with a Golden Globe and an Emmy Award for Three's Company. I think to say that John Ritter was beloved would be an understatement. The one thing I can't seem to really figure out is I just don't quite understand why he's buried here specifically. None of his relatives are buried here, and in fact, as I look around, I see this seems to be an Armenian section of the cemetery. And for whatever reason, this is where they chose to have his final resting place. I would assume and I hope that the plan is for Amy Asbeck to be buried right here on either side of him. And I do believe that I saw recently that she did just put their final home up for sale in Benedict Canyon, so if you're a huge John Ritter fan, you can go by his house. You know, there are a lot of funny people in this world, but it takes a special kind of person to be funny and slapstick. And that, I think, was one of the best parts about seeing John Ritter playing Jack Tripper on Three's Company, was just seeing how much he would throw his body around and the facial expressions that came along with it to just create that character that we all loved. I think sometimes people don't take into consideration all the things that go into being a great actor. It's not just having the emotion or knowing the lines, but sometimes it's being able to sell it with your physical ability the way he could. And as we walk out, I think maybe I should show you Buster Keaton's grave, since I mentioned him as well. And right here at the entrance, there he is. The great one. I think sometimes a little too often forgotten, the genius of Buster Keaton. You want to talk about amazing slapstick comedy? I don't think it's unfair to mention Buster Keaton, Stan Laurel, and John Ritter all in the same vlog. Masters of physical comedy. Well, I think it's time for us to head out of here. Alright, I just got home and I had ordered a box of the mazapan that I had in Mexico. Considerably cheaper if you buy it by the box than if you buy it by the piece, so now I can share this with all my friends. Sorry, senor. I don't think the candy is a good idea for you. I don't think so. I know it's peanut butter and I know you like peanut butter, but I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. Quit looking at me like that. Oh, don't do that. Don't show me that tongue. No! Hey, Ja, can we make a compromise? How about one of these peanut butter treats made for dogs? Will that work for you? I guess so. Well, I was trying to take this guy over to Tail Waggers, and he acted like he wanted to go, but then he just plopped down in the grass. So I guess the fact that he has 3 gift cards in my pocket that he can be working off of isn't enough to motivate him. All right, it looks like he had a change of heart. He's on his way. I think we found a winner. We're gonna get him this. He's just waiting for his turn up on the, yeah, see. Jeez.
Alright, last name on the Thank you. Have a treat time?
All right, he's a happy man. Unfortunately, John Ritter died in 2003 of an aortic dissection, and sadly afterward his wife had to file a malpractice lawsuit against 2 doctors because they had ordered an x-ray had been ordered when he was taken to the hospital that was never followed through with, and she believed that there were 2 doctors that made decisions or bad decisions that cost him his life. So unfortunately this is something that wouldn't have had to happen. I'm gonna call it a day here. Hope you guys enjoyed this vlog. Go watch some John Ritter. Wanted to thank Tanya Sumner for making a contribution to my channel, and thank you all for watching. Have a great night. We'll see you all later. Goodbye.